Good morning, everyone. It is Monday, December 18th, and welcome to episode 2 of Stupid Simple Crypto. I figured the best thing for today was to answer the other most common question that is around cryptocurrency, and that is, what is Bitcoin? Because after everybody asks how they can invest in it, then they ask what it is. So there was two ways to tackle this, and I opted for the most fun one. There's either the deep dive, deeply detailed technical explanation of the blockchain and the Bitcoin protocols and all of the transactions and exactly how all of those work. And even in researching it for myself, frankly, I didn't find it that interesting, so I didn't think it would make a very good show. I'm going to go for more of the elevator pitch, high-level concept of what Bitcoin exactly is and how you can see it. So Bitcoin, at its most basic, I actually think was explained by its creator. So back in 2008, Satoshi Nakamoto released a paper called Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. And Satoshi is almost certainly a pseudonym. We have no idea who he actually is, but hopefully he is relaxing on a Pacific island he bought somewhere with all of his currency. I think he deserves that at this point. Bitcoin, at its very core, is a currency that was created by a genius that figured out how to release a very secure blockchain protocol onto the internet. And it's a currency that's created through computers doing mathematical transactions. I believe the paper gave it the best title because a peer-to-peer electronic cash system is exactly what it is. Cash was originally created by governments to make transactions between people easier. You know, if I've got 50 onions and you've got 50 carrots and I want your onions but you don't have any use for my carrots, then you know, back in the old days we couldn't do any business. But with the invention of cash, then both people could sell their commodities into cash, and then you can use that to buy things that you want. So Bitcoin performs the exact same function online. I've got 100 Bitcoins, and well, at this point 100 Bitcoins could buy me that island somewhere. But back in the original days, somebody in Jacksonville, Florida traded 100 Bitcoins for a Papa John's delivered pizza. So that would go down as either the best or worst trade in history, depending on which end of that transaction you were on. It really has no meaning above and beyond what people assign to it, which makes some people think, oh, this isn't actually currency. But you know, the same can be said for a dollar bill, and I think I'll cover that on a different day. But Bitcoin itself, like I said, the original paper was released back in 2008. In 2009, the original Bitcoin peer software was released, and people were using that to mine Bitcoins at first. Bitcoin, like I just mentioned, is created through mining. Mining is essentially, at this point, it's very high-end banks of computers performing calculations and verifying the blockchain, all for the chance to possibly be entered into a lottery to win a piece of Bitcoin. A piece of Bitcoin is awarded roughly every 10 minutes. You know, back when this first started in 2009, you could use a regular old computer to do it. And at this point, unless you're an institutional investor and have access to supercomputers that can land people on the moon, you're not going to be able to mine Bitcoin. There's other software out there you can mine, but Bitcoin itself is out of reach at this point. One of the things that make Bitcoins interesting is actually the most easily dividable currency ever created. One Bitcoin itself is divided into 100 million Satoshis. You can see that kind of illustrated here. One Satoshi is the equivalent to 1% of 1 penny, and one Bitcoin overall is worth about $19,000 at this point. So that covers a lot of ground in between those things. You got a couple examples here. Right now, $1 US is 5,299 Satoshis. This is actually from 99bitcoins.com, so I'll include the link in today's show notes. But Bitcoin being this easily dividable, it really set the groundwork for it to be a very powerful currency, because, you know, dollars, for example, you can only divide it into 100 pieces, and then you start putting multiple dollars on there. At a certain point with inflation, it just makes the value of $1 absolutely ridiculous. The infrastructure built into Bitcoin actually future-proofed it in a way that no currency that we have ever had has been able to do. So it's very, very well set up and stable for the long term. Now, because Bitcoin was essentially started by a private individual and created through exclusively electronic means, that's caused a lot of folks to say that, Bitcoin is essentially the same as arcade tokens or company script that can only be used at the company store, or some other kind of false currency that floats around on a daily basis. Arcade tokens, casino coins, for example. I think the exact opposite is true. The fact that Bitcoin was released by a private individual and has gone from people swapping services on a message board like Ithaca Hours or something like that and turned into a currency that's worth, again, at the moment, about $19,000, proves that the world sees value in this currency. It doesn't matter that it wasn't created by a government. Money at any given moment is worth exactly what somebody feels that it's worth. We've seen rapid inflation. We've seen massive deflation with government-issued currencies. If the same thing happens to Bitcoin, that doesn't prove that the concept is false. That only proves that it's a real currency. All currencies go through the trouble. None of the currencies that exist in the world are actually backed by anything other than the faith and credit of the United States government. So Bitcoin actually gives us a safety valve that we can go to because it is, at least at this point, it is immune from government interference. So I think that proves its value long term, and we'll see where it happens this year. So that's what we got for episode 2. It's my high-level overview of Bitcoin. Hopefully this has given you some idea of exactly how it works. I'll include the history of Bitcoin, how to get started in mining, and then also the 99 Bitcoin calculator in the show notes if you want to go check those out for yourself. Thank you very much for joining me today. Can't wait to see you folks tomorrow. If you want to reach out to me directly, you can email me at sscrypto@outlook.com. Also, feel free to drop any comments in the show notes of this section here. And thank you for joining us. The world is changing, and your money should too.